Supporting culturally responsive education. There are 3 points to discuss to understanding supporting culturally responsive education. They are how teaching has evolved in the last 50 years, what skills must an educator have in the 21st century education, what must educators know about their students. How has teaching evolved? I believe that we are moving from an industrial model of education to a collaborative model of education. However, we aren't there in full capacity yet. We are still trying to meet the future using the ways of the past. Throughout most of American history, schools, churches, and government have promoted the notion that anyone who works hard enough can achieve the American dream. Many students have lost faith in this belief and are often those at the heart of classroom conflict. Students of today do not have the motivation to go to school. At one time, the thought was if you go to school and get a degree, you will get a job. That is not always the case any longer. Students are categorized into 2 groups, smart and not smart, or academic and non-academic. We still make general assumptions about cultural and social structures and capacities. Brilliant people view themselves as not smart or non-academic because they are comparing themselves to a model of public education that has not been revamped to fit the 21st century needs of our students. Our system of education is still one that can be comparable to a factory line. We group kids into grades by ages instead of abilities, and we evaluate them individually rather than collaboratively. When we view collaboration as being one of the key factors to success, we also still tell time according to a bell schedule. We are also over-medicating our children to get them to be able to focus on getting the correct answers. I'm not a doctor and I don't pretend to be one. However, we are over-medicating our students and calling ADD or ADHD the reason why they can't focus. They can't come up with the solutions to problems, and if they do, they can only do it in one way. The answer is in the back of the book, but you can't look at it and you can't cheat, and you can't help each other in finding the solution to the problem, instead of allowing students to come up with a solution to problems in multiple ways. However, the biggest difference of looking back from then to now and understanding why education is the way it is and why we teach the way we do is that present day we are aware that we are not meeting the needs of our students using the old educational model. As I have stated, we are not at the collaborative level yet. However, I believe with the awareness that we have, we are working towards it. What skills must an educator have? A teacher in the 21st century needs to motivate and inspire students to bring out their critical thinking, communication of their ideas and questions, collaboration, and lastly, their creativity. Today's teachers must be innovators, motivators, and catalysts. Preparing students for the 21st century workforce isn't just about technology or skills for the global economy. It's about creativity, cultural awareness, problem solving, innovation, civic engagement, communication, productivity, collaboration, accountability, exploration, and responsibility. Students should be asking more questions rather than answering them. Teachers must create an environment within their classroom as dynamic as the world around them. For example, students collaborating to solve real-world scenarios. What must teachers know about the cultures and backgrounds of their students? What do the students and families value? What are their beliefs and differences? The essential elements of understanding one's culture is to be skilled in knowing a culture's beliefs, values, customs, traditions, taboos, norms, and spiritual beliefs. To aid teachers in using the above elements to their advantage as well as the student's advantage, the following elements are recommended. Put students' interests and backgrounds at the core of teaching. Use students' learning styles to plan instruction. Use student language as learning resources. Connect with parents and the community. Culturally responsive teaching. Cultural is essential to learning. It plays a role not only in communicating and receiving information, but also in shaping the thinking processes of groups and individuals. A pedagogy that acknowledges, responds to, and celebrates fundamental cultures offers full, equitable access to education for students from all cultures. Culturally responsive teaching is a mindset that recognizes the importance of including students' cultural references in all aspects of learning. Some of the characteristics of culturally responsive teaching are positive perspectives on parents and families, communication of high expectations, learning within the context of culture, student-centered instruction, culturally meditated instruction, reshaping the curriculum, and teacher as a facilitator. Now that we know what culturally responsive education is and why it is important that we support it in our classrooms, I would like to share 2 examples of how I integrated culturally responsive projects within my art classroom. My art curriculum is comprised of learning and being able to apply the 7 elements of art: line, shape, texture, color, value, space, and form. I was finding that I was not meeting the needs of my ELD students due to language barriers for our space and form project. In collaborating with the ELD teacher, I was able to understand how to use the language that was being obtained in the core classroom, and then I decided that my students were going to depict a cultural celebration and then present that drawing to the class, making our class knowledgeable about different celebrations that each of us partake in. Once I gave this personal option to my students, they became vested in my class and were able to obtain the focused elements easily. This would be an example of me putting my students' interests and backgrounds at the core of my teaching. A second way of showing culturally responsiveness in the classroom is having students interview each other. In my classroom, my students interviewed one another. My students and I are better able to understand each other in cultural differences by conducting interviews, and then in groups of 2, we drew something that we both share and something that is new that we don't know about. I then posted their drawings around the room and we conducted a gallery walk. As students went through the gallery walk, we had responding sessions where students were able to explain what their differences are and thusly celebrate them. To reach, stimulate, and educate the diverse learners of the 21st century, it is imperative that our teaching revolves around culturally responsive teaching. Thank you very much for supporting this necessary cause in the 21st century classroom.